If you've been paying rent lately, you've probably been hearing that inflation is coming down, but your rent keeps going up, sometimes a lot. So the question is, if inflation's falling, why isn't rent falling too? And the answer isn't greed or conspiracy or landlords randomly jacking up rent prices. It's how rent actually works. So let me explain. First, we need to go over what inflation falling actually means. This is the most important misunderstanding. When inflation falls, it does not mean prices go down. It means that prices are still going up, but more slowly. So if inflation was 8% last year and now it's 3%, prices are still rising, just at a slower pace. Think of it like a car. Inflation is the speed and prices are the location. Slowing down doesn't mean you're going backwards, it just means you're moving forward more slowly. Rent works the same way. Once rent jumps to a higher level, it usually doesn't rewind. Rent is a lagging price. It's not a real-time price. And basically what that means is rent doesn't update like gas or groceries, where it's just kind of instantaneous. It's based on contracts or leases. And most leases last up to 12 months, sometimes longer, and they only reset when the lease renews. So when inflation spikes, landlords don't instantly raise rent. Instead, those increases roll out slowly, lease by lease, over multiple years. That means that rent inflation often shows up after the inflation spike, not during it. So by the time inflation starts falling, rent is still catching up. This is why you'll often see headlines saying inflation is cooling, while renters feel like, then why did my rent just go up again? A simple example would be that, let's say inflation spikes in 2021 and 2022. A landlord doesn't raise rent on every tenant immediately. Most tenants are locked into leases. But as leases expire, one tenant renews at a higher rent, and another moves out and the unit gets relisted higher. And let's say another renews 6 months later. Those increases stack over time. So rent keeps rising in 2023 and 2024, even though inflation has already slowed. This is normal and it's exactly what we're seeing. And rent prices depend heavily on one thing: vacancies. If there are lots of empty units, landlords have to compete on price. But if there are few empty units, renters compete for housing. In many cities right now, building slowed when interest rates rose. Financing new apartments got more expensive, zoning and approval stayed slow, so supply did not surge. At the same time, population growth and household formation did not stop. That keeps vacancy rates low, and low vacancies give landlords more pricing power even when inflation is falling. And higher mortgage rates pushed a lot more people into renting. And here's where rent and mortgage rates connect. When mortgage rates rise, fewer people can buy, and first-time buyers get priced out. People start delaying home ownership, so what do they do instead? They rent longer, and that increases demand for rental units. So yes, higher mortgage rates can help cool home prices, but it also increases pressure on rent. And this is kind of one of the most counterintuitive parts of the housing markets. The thing that makes buying harder often makes renting more competitive. And renting prices, they don't need everyone. It just needs enough people to keep them high. Because rents don't fall just because some people can't afford it. As long as enough tenants can pay, units are filled, and vacancies stay low, rent can keep rising. You don't need universal affordability. Landlords only need enough demand to clear the market. And that's why rents can stay high even when many people feel stretched. Another big misconception is that if inflation falls, landlord costs fall. Oftentimes they actually don't. Think about property taxes, for example, or insurance, or maintenance and labor, and even utilities. If inflation starts to cool down, these costs rarely reverse. And if costs stay high, rent usually stays high too. And landlords, at the end of the day, they price for cash flow, so they don't lower rent unless they have to. And historically, rent only falls when unemployment spikes, people double up or move back home, vacancies jump, or there's a deep recession. That's kind of what happened in early parts of the pandemic. But other than that, rent growth might slow, but prices don't fall. This is why inflation can drop, wages can cool, but rent stays elevated. And rent prices and home prices behave differently. Home prices can stall for years, rent usually doesn't. Why? Because rent resets constantly. Home prices don't. Rent is renegotiated every single year, whereas home prices only matter when someone sells. That makes rent more sensitive to demand, more persistent on the way up, and slower to come down. So even in cooling economies, rents often keep rising. So what's really happening right now and what we're seeing isn't universal. It's the after effect of an inflation shock, tighter housing supply, higher mortgage rates, and delayed rent adjustments. So yes, even though inflation cooled, rent is still catching up. And that's not a failure of policy, it's just kind of how housing prices work. The real takeaway from this video is that rent keeps rising even when inflation falls, because falling inflation does not mean falling prices, and rent adjusts slowly through lease renewals. And when the Fed pushes higher mortgage rates, it also pushes more people into renting. So when the demand for renting increases and landlords are able to charge high prices and keep vacancies low, rent does not really come back down. It'll either stabilize or just go up slowly.